Emily Dufresne's hands didn't shake as she stepped out of the limousine, but her heart hammered against her ribs like a warning. The manor sprawled before her, all ivory stone and climbing roses, wealth dripping from every sculpted hedge. She didn't belong here. At least, that's what everyone would think. And that was exactly the point. Hey, beautiful souls, before we dive into this powerful story, I just want to say hello and send love to wherever you're watching. Drop your city in the comments below. I love connecting with you all. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to see how this unfolds. Trust me. Now, back to Emily. She smoothed down the simple navy dress. Clean, modest, unremarkable. Nothing like the glittering gowns that would fill the wedding reception. Her reflection in the limousine window showed exactly what she intended. A woman the world would overlook, underestimate, dismiss. Good. Emily, you sure about this? Adrian Hadley's voice carried concern as he rounded the vehicle. Impossibly tall in his tailored Tom Ford tuxedo. The Billionaire CEO extended his hand, his blue eyes searching her face. She took it, feeling the familiar calluses on her palms, remnants of years spent scrubbing floors in the very building he commanded. I'm sure. What Adrian didn't know could fill oceans. What everyone didn't know had built empires. Inside her clutch, her phone buzzed. She didn't need to check it. The stock alerts, the board notifications, the financial reports, they could wait. Tonight wasn't about the billions moving through accounts under encrypted names and shell corporations. Tonight was about truth and reckoning. Adrian had invited her as his guest, his personal guest, to his younger sister Margaret's wedding, and she'd accepted for one reason. She needed to see them. All of them. The elite who'd never spare a glance for the black woman who emptied their trash bins and scrubbed their coffee rings. She needed to stand in their space, where their contempt like armor and weight. Because somewhere in that glittering crowd, there was someone who knew, someone who would recognize her. And when he did, everything would shatter. Shall we? Adrian offered his arm, oblivious to the storm about to break. Emily linked her arm through his, her pulse steady now, her mind sharp. She'd built her entire strategy on invisibility, on watching from the margins while others took credit, made mistakes, revealed their true characters when they thought no one important was looking. Tonight, the margins would speak. But would the truth destroy everything she'd built, or finally set her free? Emily had faced hostile boardrooms in Singapore, negotiated with venture capitalists who'd built fortunes on ruthlessness, stared down corporate raiders trying to gut her company for parts. None of it compared to the particular cruelty of a society wedding where your worth was measured by the label on your dress and the clarity of stones at your throat. She wore neither. Adrian, a platinum blonde in emerald silk, descended on them, air-kissing Adrian's cheeks with practiced precision. Darling, we've been waiting. Margaret is beside herself. You know how she gets. Her eyes slid to Emily, a flicker of confusion crossing her surgically perfected features. And you brought someone. Vanessa Lonnet. This is Emily Dufresne, Adrian said, and Emily caught the slight tightening of his jaw. He was already regretting this, already feeling the social calculus shift. Emily is a dear friend. How lovely. Vanessa's smile was glacial. And how do you two know each other? We work in the same building, Emily said simply, watching Vanessa's brain perform its predictable gymnastics. Same building. Simple dress. Black woman on a white billionaire's arm. The conclusion was instant and wrong. How refreshing that you bring staff to family events, Adrian. Very progressive. Vanessa's laugh was wind chimes over broken glass. Margaret will be so surprised. Adrian's face flushed. Vanessa, that's not. It's fine, Emily interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. She'd learned years ago that silence was power, that the less you said, the more people revealed. Let them make their assumptions. Let them show her exactly who they were. Vanessa floated away, already whispering to a cluster of guests who turned to stare. Emily, I'm sorry. I should have. Adrian started, but she squeezed his arm gently. You should have what? Announce my net worth at the door? Warn a sign. She smiled and meant it. This was exactly why she'd chosen Adrian 6 months ago, when she'd engineered her transfer to the cleaning staff on the executive floor. She needed to know if anyone in her company, possessed actual character. Adrian Hadley had been the only executive who'd learned her name, who'd asked about her weekend, remembered she was taking online courses, brought her coffee the way she liked it. He defended her when Parker Corleone, the VP of operations, had berated her for not restocking the conference room quickly enough. He'd never once treated her as invisible. That's why she'd let him in little by little, shared her observations about business strategy during their break room conversations, offered insights that he'd started implementing, leading to a 23% increase in quarterly revenue. He thought she was brilliant and wasted as a cleaner. He had no idea she'd coded the original algorithm that made his job possible. I just don't understand people sometimes, Adrian muttered as they entered the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers caught the light, scattering rainbows across marble floors. You're one of the smartest, most insightful people I've ever met, and they see exactly what I want them to see, Emily finished. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you look? Drop a comment and let me know. I read every single one, and your stories matter. Adrian studied her with those sharp blue eyes that had built a billion-dollar reputation. Sometimes I think there's a whole story you're not telling me. Everyone has stories, Adrian. She accepted champagne from a passing waiter, let the glass warm in her hand untouched. Alcohol dulled edges, and tonight she needed every edge razor-sharp. Emily. A genuine smile broke across Adrian's face as a young woman in an elaborate white gown approached. Margaret Hadley, the bride, all nervous energy and desperate joy. I'm so glad you could come. Adrian talks about you constantly. Congratulations, Emily said, and the warmth in her voice was real. Margaret had never been to the office, had no context for prejudice. She saw only her brother's guest. Thank you for making him more human, Margaret laughed. Whatever you've been telling him about work-life balance actually got him to take a vacation. You're a miracle worker. Before Emily could respond, a man materialized at Margaret's side, tall, dark-haired, moving with the controlled precision of someone accustomed to command. His hand settled at Margaret's waist with possessive gentleness. Darling, your mother wants photos, he said, his accent carrying traces of London and old money. Then his eyes landed on Emily, and the world stopped. His face went absolutely white. His hand fell from Margaret's waist. His mouth opened, closed, open again. Dr. Dufresne, he breathed. Not the name they'd used in introductions. Not Emily. Not nice to meet you. Doctor. The ballroom noise seemed to dim, every conversation fading to white noise as Malcolm Malone, business strategist to Fortune 500 CEOs, the groom, the man about to marry into Adrian's family, stared at Emily like she was a ghost. No, like she was God. Malcolm. Margaret's voice carried confusion. You know Emily? His Adam's apple bobbed. Sweat beaded at his hairline despite the climate-controlled perfection of the room. Know her? His voice cracked. Emily met his eyes, and in that moment, 1,000 memories passed between them. Malcolm, 26 years old, hungry and brilliant, sitting across from her in a Cambridge seminar room. Malcolm, presenting his thesis on disruptive innovation while she asked questions that made him rethink everything. Malcolm, accepting his first consulting contract with a company she'd quietly funded, never knowing the drive Dufresne, who'd written the recommendation letter that changed his life, was the same woman who'd challenged him to be better. He'd built his entire career on principles she'd taught him, and he'd never seen her face until 5 years ago at a conference in Dubai. A brief encounter where she'd sworn him to secrecy, asked him to protect her anonymity. She'd been testing him even then. An old teacher, Emily supplied smoothly, her voice calm as a summer lake. From many years ago, I'm sure Malcolm has long surpassed anything I taught him. The lie was a gift, an escape route, a test. Malcolm's eyes searched hers, reading the message beneath. Not yet. Not here. Not now. Yes, he managed, his voice steadying though his hand still trembled. Yes, a teacher. I didn't expect to see you here. Life is full of surprises, Emily said. But Adrian was watching them both with growing confusion, and across the ballroom, Vanessa Lawnit had noticed the exchange, her predatory instincts activated by the scent of scandal. Emily's phone buzzed again in her clutch. This time, she glanced at it. Urgent. Hostile takeover bid. Parker Corleone leveraging board contacts. Vote scheduled for Monday. Her company, her creation, under attack from within, by a man who'd never bothered to learn the name of the woman who scrubbed his office. Emily's fingers tightened on her champagne glass. The timeline had just accelerated. She'd planned to observe tonight, to gather intelligence, to let the natural prejudice of Adrian's social circle reveal itself over hours of subtle slights. But Parker was moving, and if he succeeded, if he wrested control from her carefully constructed network of proxies and shell corporations, everything she'd built, the fair wages, the ethical practices, the innovation labs that prioritize people over profit, would be dismantled for quarterly earnings. Malcolm was still staring at her, questions burning in his eyes. Adrian looked between them, sensing undercurrents he couldn't name. And Margaret, sweet Margaret, just wanted everyone to smile for photographs. "Shall we find our seats?" Emily suggested, her voice betraying nothing of the calculations racing through her mind. Because somewhere in this room, full of people who dismissed her, mocked her, looked through her like she was furniture, was the answer to stopping Parker. And she was about to show them all what happened when you underestimated the quiet black woman in the simple dress. The question was no longer if she'd reveal herself. It was how much destruction the truth would leave in its wake. Emily sat at table 12, not the head table with Adrian's family, not even close to the inner circle. Adrian had protested the seating arrangement, but his mother, Patricia Hadley, had been immovable. "We have protocols, darling. Surely your friend understands." Emily understood perfectly. She shared the table with distant cousins and business acquaintances, people connected enough to merit invitations, but not important enough for proximity to power. They'd introduced themselves with diminishing enthusiasm as they registered her simple dress, her lack of jewelry, her quiet demeanor. Now they ignored her completely. "The market volatility is creating opportunities," a hedge fund manager named Richard was saying, his fork gesturing with each point. "Take quantum innovations, for example. Brilliant tech, but weak leadership structure, ripe for acquisition." Emily's water glass paused halfway to her lips. Quantum innovations. Her company. Her life's work. "I heard Parker Corleone is making moves," a woman in blood-red silk added. "Finally, that company's been coasting on legacy code for years. They need someone with vision to maximize shareholder value." Legacy code. The algorithm Emily had written at 23, the revolutionary AI that had transformed data analytics across 6 industries, that had saved the healthcare system millions while improving patient outcomes. Legacy code. "Corleone's a shark," Richard agreed approvingly. "Heard he's planning to gut R&D, streamline operations. The stock will soar once he cuts the fat." The fat. The innovation labs where brilliant minds worked on projects that wouldn't show profit for years, but would change lives. The employee wellness programs. The scholarship funds for underprivileged students interested in tech. Everything Emily had built while the world thought quantum was run by a reclusive founder who communicated only through lawyers and board proxies. "Excuse me." A voice dripping with false sweetness cut through the conversation. Vanessa Lawnit had materialized beside their table, champagne in hand and malice in her eyes. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I simply must know." "Emily, was it?" Emily set down her water glass with careful precision. "Yes." "How exactly do you know Adrian?" "The real story." Vanessa's smile was a blade wrapped in silk. "Because we're all simply dying to understand why a billionaire CEO would bring his cleaning lady to his sister's wedding as a date." The table went silent. Every conversation within earshot died mid-sentence. Emily felt the weight of 50 stares, the collective held breath of people scenting blood in the water. "I'm not his date," Emily said quietly. "I'm his guest." "Oh, how silly of me." "His guest." Vanessa laughed, and others joined her, a cascade of cruel amusement. "And does your employer know you're here? Or did you call in sick to play dress up?" Something dark flickered across Emily's vision. Not anger. She learned to transmute anger into strategy years ago. But determination. Cold, absolute determination. Vanessa, that's enough. Adrian's voice cut through the laughter like a whip crack. He'd crossed the ballroom in long strides, his face tight with barely controlled fury. Apologize. Now. Darling, I'm just asking questions we're all thinking. Then you're all revealing exactly who you are, Adrian said, his voice dropping to a register Emily had never heard. Dangerous, protective. Emily is brilliant, kind, and has more integrity in her little finger than most people in this room combined. If you can't treat my guest with respect, there's the door. The silence that followed was absolute. Emily's heart did something complicated in her chest. No one had defended her like this in years. Decades. Not since she deliberately stepped into invisibility. Adrian extended his hand to her. Dance with me? It wasn't a request. It was a rescue. Emily took his hand and let him lead her to the dance floor, aware of every whisper erupting in their wake, every shocked face, every calculation being recalibrated. I'm sorry, Adrian said as they began to move to the string quartet's rendition of something classical and achingly beautiful. I should have shut that down earlier. I should have. You have nothing to apologize for, Emily said, and she meant it. His hand was warm at her waist, solid grounding. She'd kept everyone at arm's length for so long. She'd forgotten what it felt like to be held, to be seen. I don't understand why you let them talk to you like that, Adrian said, searching her face. You could destroy half their arguments with a single sentence. I've heard you dismantle corporate strategy over coffee. Why do you hide? Maybe I'm learning who people really are when they think it doesn't matter, Emily said. And what have you learned about me? She looked up at him. This man who'd never known her wealth, her power, her empire, who'd valued her anyway, who'd brought her coffee and asked about her mother's health and implemented her suggestions without claiming credit. That you're rare, she said softly. Something shifted in his eyes, something that made her breath catch. Emily, he started, but his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. Then again, and again. He pulled it out, frowning. It's the emergency line. I have to. His face went white as he read the screen. No, this can't be happening. What is it? Someone just filed an emergency injunction to freeze Quantum Innovations' assets. They're claiming financial irregularities, demanding a full audit and immediate board intervention. His fingers flew across the screen. The vote isn't Monday anymore. They've moved it to tomorrow morning. Sunday. Parker somehow got an emergency session approved. Emily's mind raced. Sunday. Less than 12 hours. They're alleging the majority shareholder is a ghost, that the entire ownership structure is fraudulent, Adrian continued, his voice rising with each word. If they succeed, the company gets seized by the courts pending investigation. Everything stops. 2,000 employees out of work, projects terminated, partnerships dissolved. Who filed the injunction? Emily asked, though she already knew. Parker Corleone. And he's got backing from. Adrian's face went absolutely still. From half the people in this room. Venture capital firms, investment groups. This has been coordinated for months. A hostile takeover disguised as corporate reform. And it was happening now because someone had tipped Parker off that the Real owner might finally be vulnerable. Emily's phone exploded with notifications. Her lawyers, her board proxies, her financial advisors, all screaming digital alarm bells. She had one move left, one nuclear option. Reveal herself, prove ownership, stop the takeover, but would mean exposing everything. The decade of anonymity, the careful observation, the strategic invisibility that had given her more truth about human nature than any boardroom ever could. It would mean standing in front of these people, these cruel, dismissive people, and claiming power they'd never grant her based on merit alone. I need to make a call, Adrian said, already pulling away. I need to find our legal team. Stop this before. Adrian, wait. Emily's voice was calm, even as her heart hammered. What if I told you there was another way? What do you mean? Before she could answer, Malcolm appeared beside them, his face urgent. Dr. Dufresne, I have a word. Privately. Adrian looked between them, confusion and frustration warring on his face. What is going on? How do you two really know each other? Not here, Malcolm said. Please. It's about quantum. Everything crystallized in that moment. Malcolm knew her identity. He'd recognized her immediately, which meant he'd known all along who really owned quantum innovations. And if he'd known, who else did? If you're hooked on this story, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps more people discover these tales, and I pour my heart into every single one. The garden, Emily said decisively. 5 minutes. She turned to Adrian, saw the questions burning in his eyes, the concern, the growing realization that nothing about her was what it seemed. Trust me, she said. Just a little longer. I trust you, he replied without hesitation. But Emily, whoever you really are, please be careful. Whoever you really are. Emily slipped through the ballroom doors into the cool night air, Malcolm close behind. The garden was all manicured perfection, rose bushes and stone pathways lit by carefully placed lanterns. You need to stop this, Malcolm said the moment they were alone. Reveal yourself. You own 68% of quantum. Your word is absolute. One statement to the board and Parker's finished. And show my hand after 10 years of watching, learning, building something real instead of just profitable. Parker will destroy everything you've built. He'll gut the programs, fire anyone who doesn't maximize immediate returns, turn your company into exactly the kind of soulless corporation you started Quantum to oppose. I know what Parker will do, Emily said. I've been watching him for 6 months. I know every shady practice, every corner he cuts, every employee he's harassed. I have documentation that would end his career. Then use it. I will. But not like this. Not in reaction. Not playing his game. She pulled out her phone, staring at the cascade of notifications. If I reveal myself now, under duress, it looks defensive. Like I'm hiding something. His allegations of financial irregularities will gain legitimacy even as I disprove them. So what's your plan? Emily looked back at the ballroom, at the glittering crowd visible through the French doors. People who'd mocked her, dismissed her, revealed their true characters when they thought she was powerless. People who were about to learn a lesson in assumptions. I'm going to let them see exactly who I am, Emily said. Not in a boardroom, not in legal filings. Here, tonight, in front of everyone. Emily, Dr. Dufresne, are you sure? She thought of Adrian's hand at her waist, his voice defending her, his trust given freely even when nothing made sense. She thought of Margaret's genuine kindness, unmarred by prejudice. She thought of every employee at Quantum who depended on her, who believed in the company's mission even if they'd never met its founder. And she thought of Vanessa's cruel laughter, Richard's casual dismissal of legacy code, Parker's calculated greed. I've never been more sure of anything, Emily said. She pulled up a contact on her phone, her lead attorney, who'd been waiting 10 years for this call. Sandra, it's me. I need you to prepare the documentation. All of it. Ownership papers, stock certificates, founding documents, everything. And I need you to get it to the Hadley estate in the next hour. You're really doing this? Sandra's voice carried equal parts excitement and concern. I'm really doing this. Also, pull the files on Parker Corleone. Every piece of evidence we've compiled. SEC violations, harassment complaints, the offshore accounts. Prepare a full dossier. Consider it done. Emily, good luck. Emily ended the call and turned to Malcolm. I'm going to need your help. Anything. When I give the signal, I need you to introduce me. Properly. With my full credentials. Malcolm's smile was wolfish. It would be my absolute honor. They walked back toward the ballroom together, and Emily felt the shift inside herself. The quiet cleaner falling away, the brilliant strategist emerging. The woman who'd built an empire while the world wasn't looking, stepping into the light. But as they reached the doors, a hand grabbed Emily's arm, hard enough to bruise. Parker Corleone materialized from the shadows, his face twisted with something ugly. I know what you're trying to do, he hissed. You think you can poison Adrian against me, whisper in his ear, play innocent. But you're nobody. You're nothing. And after tomorrow, you won't even have a job to crawl back to. Emily looked at his hand on her arm, then up at his face with an expression of such calm certainty that he actually flinched. "Remove your hand," she said quietly. "Now, or what? You'll report me." He laughed. "To who?" "Your cleaning lady. You're invisible." "No," Emily said. "I was invisible. There's a difference." Malcolm stepped forward, his voice carrying absolute authority. "I'd suggest you do what the lady says, Parker. Unless you want to discover exactly how catastrophic your next few hours are about to become." Parker looked between them, confusion replacing arrogance. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who knows exactly who she is," Malcolm said. "The question is, do you know who you've been stealing from?" Emily pulled her arm free with deliberate calm. "You'll find out. Very soon." She walked past him into the ballroom, feeling his stare burning in her back, hearing his sharp intake of breath as the pieces started falling into place just slowly enough to maximize his panic. The ballroom had progressed to dessert and champagne toasts. Margaret and her new husband, Malcolm, were about to cut the cake, surrounded by photographers and well-wishers. Adrian found Emily immediately, relief flooding his face. "Are you okay? I saw Parker follow you." "I'm fine," Emily said. Then, because she owed him truth, added, "Actually, I'm about to be much better than fine." "What does that mean?" Emily smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who'd played the longest game and was finally making her move. "It means you're about to see exactly who your friend really is." She squeezed his hand once, then walked toward the wedding cake, toward Margaret and Malcolm, toward the microphone where speeches were about to begin. Her phone buzzed one final time. "Documentation delivered. Waiting outside in car number 3. Dossier on Parker compiled. Strike team ready. You're clear to proceed." "Sandra." Emily took a breath, felt the weight of 10 years of silence, of observation, of deliberate invisibility. Then she stepped into the light, and everything changed. The sound of a champagne flute tapping crystal cut through the ballroom chatter like a knife. Patricia Hadley stood at the microphone, resplendent in ice blue silk, her smile the practiced perfection of a woman born to command rooms. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for the toasts." Emily stopped 3 feet from the stage. Not yet. The timing had to be perfect. She felt Adrian's presence before she saw him, his hand gentle at her elbow. "Emily, what are you doing?" "Waiting," she said simply. "For what?" She turned to face him, really looked at him. This man who'd seen her worth when everyone else saw only her occupation. His bow tie was slightly askew now, his hair ruffled from running his hands through it while making frantic calls to lawyers. He'd been trying to save a company he didn't know belonged to the woman standing beside him. "Adrian," she said quietly, "in about 10 minutes, everything you think you know about me is going to change." His blue eyes searched hers. "Are you in danger?" The question, immediate, protective, made her chest tighten. "No." "Then I don't care what changes." His hand moved from her elbow to her hand, fingers intertwining with hers. "These past 6 months, talking with you, learning from you, you've made me remember why I got into this business. Not for the money or the status, but because technology could actually help people." "Adrian, let me finish." His thumb traced circles on her palm, and she felt the touch everywhere. "I've been in rooms with presidents and tech giants and Nobel Prize winners. None of them see the world like you do. None of them cut through the noise to what actually matters." He paused, vulnerability flickering across his face. "I was going to wait until after the wedding, but given everything happening, Emily, I'm falling for you. Have been for months." The world tilted. She'd planned for every contingency. Board resistance, legal challenges, media scrutiny, public revelation. She had not planned for Adrian Hadley to confess his feelings 60 seconds before she blew up both their lives. "You don't know what you're saying," Emily managed. "I know exactly what I'm saying. I don't care that you're a cleaner. I don't care what anyone in this room thinks. I care that you're brilliant and kind, and you see me. Not the CEO, not the trust fund, just me." His grip tightened. "Whatever you're about to do, whatever changes, I'm here." "Okay." Emily opened her mouth to respond, but Patricia's voice rang out again. "First, I'd like to invite the best man to say a few words. Richard Lawnett, Vanessa's husband and dear family friend." Richard, the hedge fund manager who'd called her company Legacy Code, took the microphone with easy confidence. Margaret, Malcolm, what a beautiful celebration of love. And speaking of celebrations, I have to share some exciting news. Emily's stomach dropped. Some of you know I've been working on a major acquisition. Well, I'm pleased to announce that as of this morning, the deal is moving forward. Quantum Innovations, that tech dinosaur that's been limping along on outdated leadership, will soon be under new, visionary management. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Adrian's hand turned to ice in Emily's grip. My colleague Parker Corleone has done incredible work exposing the financial irregularities at Quantum, Richard continued. Turns out the so-called founder is a complete fabrication. A ghost. The company's been running on autopilot for years, which is why it's been so easy to... That's a lie. Adrian's voice cut through the room like a thunderclap. Every head turned. Richard's smile faltered. I'm sorry. Adrian released Emily's hand and strode toward the microphone, his posture radiating controlled fury. Quantum Innovations isn't a dinosaur. Under its current leadership, it's increased revenue by 340% in 5 years while maintaining the highest employee satisfaction rating in the industry. It's pioneered AI applications in healthcare that have saved thousands of lives. And the founder isn't a ghost. She's protected her privacy, which is her right. Emily's heart hammered. Adrian didn't know, couldn't know, but he'd somehow intuited. Adrian, darling, you're making a scene, Patricia said, her voice sharp with embarrassment. Good, because this scene needs to be made. Adrian pointed at Richard. You want to know what's really happening? Parker Corleone is attempting a hostile takeover based on fabricated evidence. He's lied to the board, manipulated stock prices, and violated about 15 SEC regulations in the process. That's slander. Parker's voice rang out from the back of the room. He pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with champagne and arrogance. You have no proof. Actually, I do. Adrian pulled out his phone. I've spent the last hour on calls with Quantum's legal team. They've been documenting your activities for months. The offshore accounts, the insider trading, the harassment complaints you've been burying. Emily's breath caught. How did he? You think you're clever, don't you, Hadley? Parker sneered. Playing white knight for your little cleaning lady girlfriend? This is pathetic. You're going to destroy your reputation over some woman you're clearly sleeping with. The crack of Adrian's fist connecting with Parker's jaw echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Chaos erupted. Women screamed. Men shouted. Margaret burst into tears. Patricia looked ready to commit murder. And Emily felt something break open inside her chest, some calcified shell she'd built around her heart cracking wide. Malcolm was suddenly there, pulling Parker to his feet while security guards materialized from nowhere. Adrian stood with his knuckles bleeding, chest heaving, looking like he wanted to hit Parker again. Get him out of here, Malcolm ordered the security team. And someone called the police. I want him charged with assault for grabbing Dr. Dufresne earlier. Dr. Dufresne? Vanessa's voice cut through the confusion. Who the hell is Dr. Dufresne? The ballroom fell silent again. Malcolm looked at Emily, question in his eyes. She gave the smallest nod. You want to know who the founder of Quantum Innovations is? Malcolm said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. You want to know who built a billion-dollar empire while you all laughed and sneered and made assumptions? He extended his hand toward Emily. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Dr. Emily Dufresne, Ph.D. in computer science and applied mathematics from Cambridge, creator of the Dufresne algorithm that revolutionized data analytics, founder and majority shareholder of Quantum Innovations, and the woman who's been cleaning your offices while you revealed exactly who you are when you thought no one important was watching. The silence was absolute. Emily felt 50 pairs of eyes on her, saw jaws dropping, faces paling, the complete cognitive dissonance of their prejudices colliding with reality. Vanessa looked like she might faint. Richard's face had gone from red to white to gray. Patricia stood frozen, her champagne glass tilted at a dangerous angle. And Adrian was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Shock, betrayal, wonder, hurt. All of it at once. Is it true? He whispered. Emily stepped forward, every eye tracking her movement. Her simple navy dress suddenly felt like armor. Her bare neck, devoid of diamonds, felt like a crown. It's true, she said clearly. I founded Quantum Innovations 11 years ago. I stepped down from active management and went silent because I needed to know who my company really was when I wasn't looking. I needed to see how employees were treated, how decisions were made, what we became when there was no figurehead demanding excellence. She turned slowly, meeting the gaze of everyone who dismissed her. I worked as a cleaner for 6 months. In that time, I was sexually harassed by Parker Corleone 3 times, documented and recorded. I witnessed Richard Lonnet attempt to manipulate stock prices through insider information, also documented. I watched Vanessa berate a pregnant employee until she cried, then threatened to fire her if she reported it. Vanessa's face crumpled. But I also watched Adrian Hadley defend that same employee. Emily continued, her voice softening as she looked at him. I watched him implement policies to protect workers, even when it cost the company short-term profits. I watched him choose integrity over expedience, humanity over efficiency. I watched him see people, really see them, regardless of their title or position. Adrian's eyes were bright with unshed tears. So yes, I lied about who I was. And I'm sorry for that deception, especially to you, Adrian. But I don't apologize for needing to know the truth about my own company, about the people running it, about who deserved to lead it. She pulled her phone from her clutch, pulled up the document Sandra had sent. As of this moment, I'm exercising my rights as majority shareholder. Parker Corleone is terminated effective immediately and will face criminal charges for his activities. Richard Lonnet's firm is permanently banned from any dealings with Quantum. And Adrian Hadley. She paused, meeting his gaze across the frozen tableau of the ballroom. Adrian Hadley is promoted to president and COO with full operational authority and a seat on the board. Because he's the only person in this company who earned it by being decent. The room exploded into noise. Questions shouted over questions. Reporters, who'd been invited to cover the society wedding, suddenly had a much bigger story. Phones appeared, cameras flashing. But Emily only saw Adrian pushing through the crowd toward her. You lied to me, he said when he reached her. Yes. For 6 months. Yes. You let me condescend to you, give you advice about your own company, treat you like, his voice cracked. God, I brought you coffee. I explained your own algorithm to you. Despite everything, Emily laughed. You did. You got it wrong, too. This isn't funny. Adrian, I fell in love with you. The words burst out of him, raw and honest and devastating. I fell in love with who I thought you were, and now I don't even know. You fell in love with exactly who I am, Emily interrupted, stepping closer. The Emily you talked to in break rooms, the woman who listened to your ideas and challenged your assumptions, the person who cared about employees and ethics and doing right. That's me. That's all me. The only thing that changed is my bank balance and my credentials. That's not a small thing. No, she agreed. It's not. And if you need time, space, distance, I understand. But Adrian, everything I felt, everything I shared with you, it was real. He stared at her for a long moment, and Emily felt the ballroom, the crowd, the entire world fall away until it was just the two of them and this fragile, complicated thing between them. I punched a man for you, Adrian said finally. You did. Pretty sure that violates about 40 social norms. At least 40. My mother's going to kill me. This is Margaret's wedding, and I just created an international incident. Technically, I created the international incident. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. We're going to have to talk about this. All of it. The lying, the testing, the everything. I know. But right now, there are reporters circling like sharks, my hand hurts like hell, and Parker is probably calling every lawyer in the state. He extended his uninjured hand. Dance with me again? Emily's throat tightened. Are you sure? I'm sure that everyone in this room is watching, that they're waiting to see what happens next, and that I really don't care about any of them. His eyes held hers. I care about you. Whoever you are, whatever that means. She took his hand. The string quartet, bless them, had somehow kept playing through the chaos. Adrian pulled her into his arms as the opening strains of something beautiful and heartbreaking filled the air. For the record, he murmured against her hair, "I'm still furious with you." Noted, and impressed, and confused, and possibly concussed from how fast my entire reality just shifted. Also noted, "But Emily? Yes. Don't ever lie to me again. Whatever happens between us, whatever this becomes, I need the truth. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "I promise." They swayed together while the crowd watched and whispered, while Malcolm tried to salvage his wedding reception, while Patricia had what looked like a very stern conversation with security. Emily's phone buzzed insistently. Sandra, probably, with 1,000 urgent legal matters. The board would need to be contacted, press statements drafted, criminal charges filed. But for this moment, she let herself be Emily Dufresne, not the billionaire, not the founder, not the genius who'd built an empire. Just a woman in a simple dress, dancing with a man who defended her honor with bleeding knuckles and a heart too good for this cruel world. "What happens now?" Adrian asked. Emily thought about Parker being escorted from the building, about Richard's pale face and Vanessa's tears, about the reckoning that was coming for everyone who dismissed her, underestimated her, revealed their true nature when they thought it didn't matter. "Now," she said, "things get complicated." She had no idea how right she was, because across the ballroom, Patricia Hadley was making a phone call, and the person on the other end had been waiting years for an opportunity exactly like this. The revelation was complete, but the real battle was just beginning. The dance ended, but Adrian didn't let go of her hand. "We should probably deal with the impending catastrophe," he said, nodding toward where Margaret was simultaneously crying and laughing while Malcolm tried to explain to confused relatives why his wedding had just turned into a corporate expose. "Probably," Emily agreed, but neither of them moved. Then Sandra appeared at the ballroom entrance, her expression urgent. She was a small black woman in her 50s, dressed in an impeccable pantsuit, carrying a leather briefcase that had seen more courtrooms than most judges. "Dr. Dufresne," she called across the room, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We have a situation." Emily's stomach dropped. "What kind of situation?" Sandra's eyes flicked to Adrian, then back to Emily. "The kind we should discuss privately. Whatever you need to say to Emily, you can say in front of me," Adrian said, his protective instinct clearly overriding common sense. Sandra's expression was carefully neutral. "Mr. Hadley, I'm not sure that's wise." "Adrian, maybe you should—" Emily started. "No." His grip on her hand tightened. "You just promised me honesty. That goes both ways. Whatever this is, we face it together." Emily looked at Sandra, who gave a microscopic shrug that said, "Your call." "Fine," Emily said, "but not here. Is there somewhere private?" Margaret, overhearing, pointed toward a side door. "The library. No one will bother you there." The library was all dark wood and leather-bound books, the kind of room designed to intimidate. Emily had always hated rooms like this. They reminded her of the Cambridge office where she'd been told, at 24, that a woman like her couldn't possibly have created something as revolutionary as the Dufresne algorithm, that she must have stolen it, or slept her way to the patent. The memory still had teeth. Sandra closed the door behind them and set her briefcase on a mahogany desk. 10 minutes ago, I received a cease and desist order. Someone is challenging your ownership of quantum innovations. On what grounds? Emily demanded. I have every document, every filing, every piece of evidence. They're claiming the original intellectual property was stolen, that the Dufresne algorithm was created using research and resources belonging to another entity, and therefore all companies built on that algorithm, including quantum, are based on fraudulent ownership. Sandra pulled out a document, her hands steady even as her voice carried tension. They're demanding immediate transfer of all assets pending a full investigation. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Emily's feet. That's insane, Adrian said. The algorithm is Emily's. She created it at Cambridge. There are publications, citations, her entire doctoral thesis. Actually, Sandra interrupted quietly, Dr. Dufresne created the foundational work at Whitmore Academy before Cambridge. During her undergraduate years, Emily closed her eyes. No, not this. Not now. Whitmore Academy, Adrian repeated slowly. That's an elite private research institution, Sandra finished. Founded and funded by the Whitmore Trust, which is controlled by Patricia Whitmore Hadley, Emily whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian's hand dropped from hers like she'd burned him. What? I didn't know, Emily said quickly, turning to face him. When I met you, when I started working at Quantum's building, I had no idea your mother was Patricia Whitmore. She goes by Hadley now. She has for decades, and I never. Wait. Adrian held up a hand, his face pale. You're saying my mother's institute is claiming ownership of your algorithm? The foundation of your entire company? Not yet, Sandra said. But the person who filed the cease and desist is acting on behalf of Whitmore Trust. And that person is, she checked the document, Dr. Julian Cross, head of advanced research at Whitmore Academy. The name hit Emily like a physical blow. Julian, 20 years dissolved in an instant. And she was 21 again, brilliant and naive, working in a cramped lab at Whitmore Academy on a scholarship that felt like salvation. Julian Cross had been her faculty advisor, her mentor, the person who'd told her she could change the world, right up until he'd tried to put his name on her research. When she'd refused, when she'd threatened to go to the ethics board, he'd launched a campaign to destroy her. Plagiarism accusations, suggestions that she was unstable, whispers that maybe a scholarship student from a poor background didn't really belong in an elite institution like Whitmore. She fled to Cambridge with her research, gotten her PhD, and built everything from scratch under her own name, using her own resources. Or so she'd thought. Julian Cross is still there. Emily's voice sounded distant to her own ears. After everything he did, still there, still head of research, and apparently still bitter. Sandra's expression was sympathetic. He's claiming that all work done at Whitmore Academy belongs to the Academy, that you signed an intellectual property agreement when you accepted your scholarship. I was 18. I didn't understand. I know, and it won't hold up in court. The agreement was unconscionable. You were a minor, and you did all the foundational work for the algorithm after leaving Whitmore. Sandra's jaw tightened. But that's not the point. The point is creating doubt, freezing assets, destroying your reputation through legal warfare. Adrian had gone absolutely still. My mother wouldn't do this. Are you sure? Emily turned to him, and something broke in her voice. Because 20 years ago, when Julian Cross tried to steal my work, someone higher up protected him. Someone powerful enough that my complaints went nowhere. Someone who decided a poor black scholarship student was acceptable collateral damage if it meant Whitmore Academy could claim ownership of a revolutionary algorithm. You don't know that was my mother, don't I? Emily pulled out her phone with shaking hands, scrolling to an email Sandra had forwarded. This cease and desist was filed 2 hours ago. Want to know what the timestamp is? 90 minutes after I reveal my identity in that ballroom. After your mother saw exactly who I was. Adrian grabbed the phone, reading the document. His face went from pale to gray. There's more, Sandra said quietly. The filing includes a request to freeze not just Quantum's assets, but Dr. Dufresne's personal accounts. All of them. They're claiming she's a flight risk, that she might move money offshore to avoid the lawsuit. That's ridiculous, Adrian said, but his voice lacked conviction. It's strategic, Emily corrected. It's exactly what someone would do if they wanted to destroy me before I could fight back. No access to funds means no ability to hire lawyers, fight the case, or maintain control of my company. She looked at Adrian, really looked at him. Your mother has been on Quantum's periphery for years. Small investments, board observer status. Nothing that would trigger my attention, but enough to stay informed. You think she's been waiting for this? For you to go public? I think Patricia Whitmore Hadley didn't get to where she is by being careless. And I think the moment she realized the cleaner I brought to her daughter's wedding was Dr. Emily Dufresne, the woman who escaped her institution with research that's now worth billions, she saw an opportunity. Adrian's phone rang. He looked at the screen, his expression shuddering. It's my mother. Don't answer it. Emily said. He answered it. Adrian, darling, where are you? Patricia's voice was tinny through the speaker, syrupy sweet. We need to discuss this situation with your friend. Her name is Emily, and she's not my friend. She's the woman I'm in love with. Silence on the other end. Then, I see. How unfortunate. Adrian, there are things you don't understand. This woman is the founder and majority owner of one of the most successful tech companies in the world. I know, Mother. I was there when she revealed it. In fact, I was there when she was mocked and dismissed and treated like garbage by your friends. Adrian, you're being emotional. Come to the East Wing. We'll talk privately. No. The word was flat, final. We'll talk right here. Dr. Dufresne, her attorney, and me. If you have something to say about the cease and desist your people just filed, say it to her face. Another pause. Then, very well. 5 minutes. The call ended. Adrian looked at Emily, and the pain in his eyes was unbearable. Tell me she's not behind this. Tell me my mother isn't trying to destroy you. I can't tell you that, Emily said softly, because I don't know for certain. But Adrian, the timing, the connections, the fact that Julian Cross is involved, it's all too convenient to be coincidence. Julian Cross. Adrian's voice went cold. He's been to our house. Family dinners. My mother calls him a brilliant researcher and victim of academic politics. He's a predator who steals from his students. And my mother protected him. It wasn't a question. Adrian ran his hands through his hair, devastation written across his face. God, how did I not see this? How did I not know? Because you're not supposed to question your family, Emily said. Because institutional power hides behind respectability. Because men like Julian and women like your mother are very, very good at making their victims look like liars. If this story is resonating with you, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting to the most intense part, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Sandra cleared her throat. Dr. Dufresne, we have about 4 minutes before Mrs. Hadley arrives. I need to know how you want to handle this. Emily's mind raced. Her accounts would be frozen within hours. Legal battles could take years. Even if she won, and she would win, the damage to Quantum would be catastrophic. Employees laid off, projects terminated, her life's work dismantled piece by piece. Unless she had leverage. Sandra, do we still have the Cambridge files? Everything from my original complaint against Julian? Of course. But Emily, those complaints went nowhere. They were buried by someone with power at Whitmore. Someone who could make problems disappear. Emily felt pieces clicking into place. Pull every document, every email, every witness statement. I want to know exactly who suppressed my complaints. I want names, positions, proof. That's going to take time. We don't have time. But you don't need to do a full investigation. Just pull Patricia Hadley's name through the database. See if she appears anywhere in the suppression chain. Sandra's fingers flew across her tablet. Seconds ticked by. Adrian stood frozen, watching his entire worldview crumble. Found it, Sandra breathed. Dr. Dufresne, there's an email thread. Patricia Whitmore. She wasn't Hadley yet. This was before her marriage. Received your formal complaint. She forwarded it to Whitmore's legal team with a note. Handle this quietly. Julian's research is too valuable to lose over a disgruntled scholarship student. The words hung in the air like poison. Emily felt vindication and heartbreak in equal measure. She'd been right. But God, she'd wanted to be wrong. For Adrian's sake. He made a sound, something between a laugh and a sob. A disgruntled scholarship student. That's what she called you. That's what powerful people always call the ones they crush, Emily said. The library door opened without a knock. Patricia Hadley swept in, still in her ice blue silk, diamonds glittering at her throat. 2 men in expensive suits flanked her. Lawyers, obviously. Adrian, this has gone on long enough, Patricia said. This woman is clearly manipulating you. She's lied about her identity, infiltrated your company, and now she's trying to turn you against your own family with wild accusations. Are they wild? Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. Because we just found the email where you called her a disgruntled scholarship student and buried her complaints against Julian Cross. Patricia's mask slipped for just a moment. You don't understand the context. Then explain it. Adrian stepped forward, and Emily saw the CEO in him now. The man who commanded boardrooms and built empires. Explain why you protected a man who tried to steal from his student. Explain why you're filing a fraudulent cease and desist the moment Emily goes public. Explain why you're trying to destroy the woman I love. Love. Patricia's laugh was sharp. Darling, you've known her 6 months. You don't love her. You love the idea of her. The humble, wise cleaner who made you feel like a good person. But that woman doesn't exist. Dr. Dufresne is a liar and a thief. Careful, Sandra interrupted, her voice cold. That's actionable slander. Patricia turned her attention to Emily, really looking at her for the first time. You think you're clever. Coming into my son's life, into my family's event, making a spectacle. But I've been playing this game since before you were born. I'm sure you have, Emily said calmly, which is why you'll understand that I've been playing too. For 20 years, I've been documenting everything. Every stolen patent that can be traced back to Whitmore Academy. Every brilliant researcher who built their career on students' work. Every complaint that was buried. Every victim who was silenced. Patricia's eyes narrowed. You have no proof. I have all the proof. Names, dates, financial records showing payment from Whitmore Trust to researchers who mysteriously produced breakthrough work right after certain students left the program. Pattern evidence of intellectual property theft spanning 2 decades. Emily pulled up her phone. And as of tomorrow morning, unless you withdraw the cease and desist and issue a public apology, all of it goes to the press. And the FBI, you're bluffing. Am I? Emily tilted her head. You protected Julian Cross because his research was too valuable. Want to explain to the federal government how much of that valuable research actually belonged to students who signed unconscionable IP agreements as teenagers? The color drained from Patricia's face. That's what I thought, Emily said. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw the cease and desist within the hour. You're going to issue a statement saying it was filed in error based on incorrect information. You're going to ensure Julian Cross never contacts me or my company again. And you're going to establish a fund, let's say $50 million, to compensate every student who had their work stolen by Whitmore Academy researchers. That's extortion. That's justice. You've had free rein for 20 years. It ends tonight. Patricia looked at her lawyers, who both had the expression of people realizing they'd been brought to a gunfight with plastic spoons. And if I refuse? Patricia asked. Emily smiled. It was not kind. Then I burn Whitmore Academy to the ground. Legally, publicly, and permanently. Your choice. The silence stretched like taffy. Then Patricia turned to Adrian. You're really going to let her do this? Destroy your family legacy. You destroyed it yourself, Adrian said, and his voice broke Emily's heart. The moment you chose protecting a predator over doing what was right. The moment you called a brilliant young woman disgruntled because she dared to stand up for herself. He looked at Emily, then back at his mother. I don't know you. I thought I did, but I don't. Adrian, get out, he said. Withdraw the cease and desist. Meet Emily's terms, and then we'll discuss whether I ever want to speak to you again. Patricia Hadley had probably never been dismissed from a room in her life, but she recognized defeat when she saw it. She left without another word, her lawyers scrambling after her. The door closed. Adrian turned to Emily, and the devastation on his face made her want to weep. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry for what she did to you. For what my family. You didn't know. I should have. I should have questioned why Julian Cross was always around, why my mother spoke about certain students the way she did. I should have seen. Adrian. Emily crossed to him, cupped his face in her hands. You are not responsible for your mother's choices. You are not your family's sins. Aren't I? The money that funded my education, my startup capital, everything I built. How much of it came from stolen research? From silent students? It was the question Emily had been afraid he'd ask, because she didn't have a good answer. I don't know, she said honestly. But what I do know is that you've spent the last 6 months proving who you are. Not who your mother is. Not who your family legacy says you should be. You. He pulled her into his arms, buried his face in her hair, and shook with silent sobs. Sandra quietly slipped from the room, giving them privacy. Emily held Adrian while he broke apart, while he grieved the mother he'd thought he knew, while he confronted the rot at the foundation of his family tree. "What do we do now?" he finally asked. Emily thought about the cease and desist that would be withdrawn, about Parker facing criminal charges, about Richard and Vanessa and all the others who'd revealed their cruelty, about the company she'd built, the empire she'd protected, the truth she'd finally claimed, about this man in her arms, whose world she'd just shattered, who'd chosen her anyway. "Now," she said, "we rebuild. Together." But even as she said it, Emily's phone buzzed with a new message. From an unknown number. "You think you've won. You have no idea what's coming." Julian Cross wasn't done, and neither was this fight. The message glowed on Emily's screen like a curse. She didn't show it to Adrian. Not yet. He was barely holding himself together after his mother's betrayal. She wouldn't add fuel to that fire. Not when she knew Julian Cross's threats were never empty. They returned to the ballroom to find the wedding reception in tatters. Half the guests had left, the rest clustered in groups whispering like conspiracy theorists. Margaret sat at the head table, mascara streaked and devastated that her perfect day had imploded. "I should apologize to her," Emily said. "You should do no such thing." Adrian's hand found hers again. "None of this is your fault." But guilt still churned in her stomach as they approached the bride. "Margaret, I'm so sorry," Emily started. "Don't." Margaret held up a hand, then surprised Emily by pulling her into a fierce hug. "Don't you dare apologize. What happened tonight? People showing their true colors, my mother's cruelty, all of it. That's on them, not you." She pulled back, gripping Emily's shoulders. "You were brave, and my brother looks at you like you hung the moon. So please, don't apologize for being extraordinary." Emily's throat tightened. "Thank you." "Although," Malcolm added, appearing beside his bride with a wry smile, "next time you plan a corporate revelation, maybe give the groom a heads up. I nearly had a heart attack when I saw you." "Noted," Emily managed. Her phone buzzed again. Then again, a cascade of notifications that made her stomach clench. Sandra appeared at her elbow, face grim. "We need to talk. Now." They retreated to the library again. Emily, Adrian, Sandra, and Malcolm, who insisted on staying since apparently my wedding is now a corporate war room. Sandra pulled up her tablet. Julian Cross just went nuclear. He's not waiting for Patricia to withdraw the cease and desist. He's filed his own lawsuit, separate from Whitmore Academy, claiming he's the actual creator of the Dufresne algorithm. "That's insane," Adrian said. "It's also strategic," Sandra continued. "He's alleging that you created the algorithm using his research notes, his methodology, his supervision. That your entire doctoral thesis at Cambridge was derivative of work you did under his mentorship." Emily's vision blurred at the edges. "He's claiming I plagiarized him? When he tried to steal from me." "It's Darvo," Malcolm said quietly. "Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Classic abuser tactic. Accuse your victim of doing what you did to them." "It gets worse," Sandra said. "He's got 3 other former Whitmore researchers backing his claim. All of them saying they witnessed you using Julian's work, that he was the real genius behind the algorithm." "They're lying." "I know. But Emily, they're credible witnesses. Published researchers, respected in their fields. And their testimony creates enough doubt to drag this through courts for years." Emily sank into a leather chair, her mind racing. "Who are they?" Sandra rattled off 3 names. Emily recognized all of them. Former colleagues who'd watched Julian try to destroy her and said nothing. Who'd benefited from a system that protected predators and punished victims. Of course they'd help him now. Their careers depended on the same structure. "There's more." Sandra's voice dropped. "Someone leaked your personnel file from Quantum. Your employment as a cleaner, the access you had to confidential information, everything. The media is spinning it as corporate espionage. They're saying you infiltrated your own company to steal trade secrets. That doesn't even make sense." Adrian exploded. "Doesn't have to make sense. Just has to create headlines." Sandra pulled up a tablet showing news alerts. Billionaire tech founder posed as cleaner to spy on company. Dr. Emily Dufresne. Genius or corporate fraud? Quantum Innovations' ownership in question as plagiarism allegations surface. By morning, every major outlet will be running this story, Sanders said. The board is already getting calls from investors demanding answers. Stock price is going to tank when markets open Monday. Emily felt the walls closing in. Everything she'd built, everything she'd protected, crumbling in real time. Can we prove the algorithm is yours? Malcolm asked. Of course. I have the original code, my research notes, my thesis defense recordings, all of which can be claimed as derivative of Julian's mentorship, Sandra interrupted gently. Emily, I believe you. But this is going to be he said, she said, between a renowned researcher with multiple witnesses and a woman who just admitted to lying about her identity for 6 months. The words hit like a physical blow. So what do? Adrian demanded. We fight. But it's going to be ugly, expensive, and very public. The trial alone could take 2 years. Meanwhile, Quantum's assets are frozen, Emily's reputation is destroyed, and Julian Cross gets to play the victim on every news outlet in the country. Emily's phone rang. An unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Dr. Dufresne. Julian Cross's voice was smooth as silk, poisonous as arsenic. I hope you're enjoying your moment in the spotlight. What do you want, Julian? Want? I want what's rightfully mine. The algorithm you stole. The company you built on my work. The recognition you've received for my genius. Emily put the phone on speaker so the others could hear. You know that's not true, she said, keeping her voice steady. You tried to put your name on my research. When I refused, you tried to destroy me. Is that what you tell yourself? Julian's laugh was cruel. You were a child, Emily. A talented child, yes, but you needed guidance. Structure. My supervision made your work possible. Your supervision involved sexual harassment and academic theft. Prove it. Oh, wait, you can't. Because 20 years ago, no one believed you. Why would they believe you now? Adrian's fists clenched, but Emily shook her head, warning him to stay silent. Here's what's going to happen, Julian continued. You're going to sign over 49% of Quantum Innovations to me. You'll retain majority control. I'm not unreasonable, but you'll compensate me for 2 decades of using my intellectual property. And if I refuse, then I destroy you. Not just your company, you. By the time I'm done, you'll be unemployable. Every paper you've published will be questioned. Every patent challenged. You'll spend the rest of your life fighting lawsuits while I dismantle everything you built. You can't. I already am. Check your Cambridge alumni page. Emily pulled up the website with shaking hands. Her profile, her achievements, her honors had been flagged with a notice. Academic credentials under review pending plagiarism investigation. Cambridge is reviewing your doctorate, Julian said pleasantly. Seems there are questions about whether you met the standards for original research. If they revoke your PhD, well, Dr. Dufresne won't be a doctor anymore, will she? The room spun. You have 48 hours to accept my offer, Julian said. After that, I go scorched earth. Enjoy what's left of your empire. He hung up. The silence that followed was suffocating. He can't actually get Cambridge to revoke your PhD, Malcolm said, but his voice lacked conviction. He can create enough doubt to make them investigate, Sanders said. And investigations take time. Time during which Emily's credentials are questioned, her authority challenged, her entire foundation undermined. Emily stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The garden outside was beautiful in the moonlight, peaceful, serene, utterly at odds with the chaos consuming her life. I could give him what he wants, she said quietly. Absolutely not, Adrian said immediately. 49% of Quantum keeps me in control. Saves the company. Saves 2,000 jobs. It also rewards a predator for decades of abuse. Adrian crossed to her, turned her to face him. Emily, you can't seriously be considering this. I'm considering that maybe fighting isn't worth the cost. Maybe. No. His hands gripped her shoulders. I know you're scared. I know this feels impossible. But you don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't reward people who've spent 20 years trying to destroy you. Even if fighting means losing everything. Especially then. His eyes searched hers. Because if you give in now, Julian wins. And every other predator out there learns they can steal from women, harass them, gaslight them, and face no consequences. Is it the world you want? I want to survive. You want to win. There's a difference. Emily pulled away from him, her chest heaving. You don't understand. You can't. Your family name opens doors. Your wealth creates opportunities. If I lose this fight, I have nothing. I am nothing. That's not true, isn't it? She whirled on him. Without my company, without my credentials, what am I? A woman who lied about her identity. A former cleaner with accusations of plagiarism following her forever. You think anyone will hire me? Invest in me? Believe me? I believe you. For how long? The words burst out before she could stop them. How long before you start wondering if Julian's right? If maybe I did use his research, maybe I did exaggerate my contributions, maybe I'm not who I claim to be. Adrian looked like she'd slapped him. You think I doubt you? I think you're the son of a woman who protected predators for profit. I think you spent your whole life in a world that teaches you people like me are liars and people like Julian are respectable. Emily's voice cracked. I think eventually you'll have to choose between me and your family. And I don't know what you'll pick. The silence was deafening. That's what you really think of me. Adrian's voice was barely a whisper. I think you punched a man tonight and declared your love in front of everyone. And it was beautiful and brave and terrifying because it can't last. Tears streamed down Emily's face. We're from different worlds, Adrian. And the longer this fight goes on, the clearer that becomes. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe you should go home. Back to your family, your life, your world. Before I drag you down with me. You're pushing me away. I'm being realistic. You're being scared. Adrian stepped closer. And I get it. Julian's threatening everything you've built. Your mother is trying to destroy you. The world is questioning your achievements. But Emily, pushing away the people who love you doesn't make you safer. It makes you alone. Drop a comment if you've ever pushed someone away because you were afraid of losing them. Sometimes our greatest fear creates what we're most afraid of. Alone is what I'm good at, Emily said. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Adrian's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You spent 10 years watching from the margins, testing people, keeping yourself hidden because you thought that's how you stayed safe. But you're not hiding anymore, Emily. You stepped into the light. And yes, it's dangerous, and yes, people are attacking you, but you're not facing it alone unless you choose to be. Adrian, I love you. Whoever you are, billionaire, cleaner, doctor, fraud, I don't care. I love the woman who challenges me, who sees the world clearly, who fights for what's right even when it costs her. His voice broke. But I can't fight for you if you won't let me. I can't be there if you keep pushing me away. Emily wanted to reach for him, wanted to collapse into his arms and let him carry some of this weight. But Julian's words echoed in her mind. By the time I'm done, you'll be unemployable. Toxic. If she let Adrian stay, she'd destroy him too. His reputation, his company, his relationship with his family. All of it would burn in the fire Julian was building. Go, she whispered. Emily, please, just go. He stared at her for a long moment, hope and heartbreak warring on his face. Then he left. The door closed behind him with a finality that felt like death. Sandra and Malcolm remained, silent witnesses to the wreckage. You know you just made a mistake, right? Malcolm said gently. I know, I just protected him, Emily corrected. From what? Life? Love? The chance to actually be there for someone who needs him? Malcolm shook his head. Emily, I've known you for 15 years. You're brilliant, strategic, always 3 steps ahead. But right now, you're just scared. Of course I'm scared. Julian is going to take everything. Only if you let him. Malcolm crouched beside her chair. You taught me something at Cambridge. Remember? You said real power isn't about control. It's about knowing what you're willing to sacrifice and what you'll defend to the death. I remember. So what are you willing to sacrifice? Your company? Your reputation? The man who loves you? Or are there some things worth defending no matter the cost? Emily closed her eyes. Every instinct screamed at her to give Julian what he wanted, to end this nightmare before it consumed everything. But Malcolm was right. If she surrendered now, Julian won. And every woman after her would learn that fighting back wasn't worth it. Sandra, she said, opening her eyes with new resolve. What would it take to win this fight? Not survive it, win it. Sandra's expression shifted to something fierce. Proof that the algorithm is yours. Witnesses to Julian's harassment. Evidence of the pattern of theft at Whitmore Academy. And enough funding to outlast him in court. The funding is handled. I have resources he doesn't know about. The evidence exists. But witnesses... Emily's voice trailed off. 20 years. How many other women had Julian victimized? How many had stayed silent? Because speaking up meant destruction. We find them, Emily said. Every woman Julian harassed. Every student whose work he stole. We find them, we document their stories, and we show the world who he really is. That could take weeks, months, and there's no guarantee they'll come forward. Then I'll be the first. Again, Emily stood, feeling steel enter her spine. Julian thinks I'm isolated. He thinks pushing Adrian away leaves me vulnerable. But he forgot something. What's that? I spent 10 years building Quantum while the world thought I didn't exist. I'm very good at fighting from the shadows. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. And I'm about to remind him exactly who he's dealing with. But even as she said it, another notification appeared. A video, sent from an anonymous source. Emily clicked play, and her blood turned to ice. It was surveillance footage from Quantum's headquarters, dated 3 days ago, showing Emily, in her cleaning uniform, accessing Adrian's computer, downloading files to a USB drive. Files she'd never touched. The footage was fake. Had to be, but it looked real. They deep-faked you, Sandra breathed. Julian has footage of you stealing corporate secrets, which means he's not planning to negotiate. Malcolm said. He's planning to have you arrested. Emily's phone rang again. Unknown number. She answered, knowing before Julian spoke what he was going to say. 48 hours just became 24. Julian's voice purred. Because unless you sign over Quantum by tomorrow night, that video goes to the FBI. And corporate espionage carries a prison sentence of up to 15 years. He hung up. Emily stood in the library of a mansion where she'd been mocked and dismissed, surrounded by the wreckage of the night that was supposed to be her triumph. Her company under attack. Her credentials questioned. Her love pushed away. Her freedom threatened. She'd never felt more alone in her life. But in the darkness, Emily Dufresne made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to run. She wasn't going to hide. And she sure as hell wasn't going to surrender. She was going to war. Emily stood alone in the library for exactly 30 seconds after Julian's threat. Then she stopped being a victim and became a strategist. Sandra, I need you to pull every piece of metadata from that deepfake video. Timestamps, editing software signatures, everything. Someone created it, which means there's a digital trail. On it. Malcolm, you said you know other people Julian trained. I need names. Everyone who studied under him in the last 20 years. Emily, I can't just... Yes, you can. Because some of them were women. And some of those women have stories. Emily's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Julian doesn't work alone. Predators never do. They have patterns, ecosystems, enablers. Find me his. Malcolm pulled out his phone, nodding slowly. I'll make calls. Emily turned to the window, her mind racing through scenarios, strategies, chess moves on a board only she could see. Julian thought he'd cornered her. He'd miscalculated. Because Emily Dufresne hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by giving up when things got hard. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know what Julian's doing. I can help. Meet me at the Quantum building. Midnight. Come alone. A friend. Every instinct screamed trap. Emily checked her watch. 11:17 p.m. I need to go, she said. Where? Sandra looked up from her tablet. Quantum headquarters. Someone claims they have information. Absolutely not. It's obviously a setup. Probably. But I can't afford to ignore any advantage. Emily grabbed her clutch. If I'm not back in 2 hours, send security. Emily. But she was already moving, heels clicking against marble as she navigated through the mostly empty mansion. The reception had dissolved entirely. Only staff remained, cleaning up the remnants of a wedding that had become a battlefield. Outside, the night air was cool against her skin. She called for a car, declined the driver. and slid behind the wheel herself. Control. She needed control. The drive to Quantum's headquarters took 20 minutes through empty streets. The building rose like a monument against the night sky. 40 floors of glass and steel, every window dark except the lobby security lights. Her building, her creation, her life's work. Julian Cross thought he could take it. He was wrong. Emily parked in her reserved spot, the one labeled the Dufresne, founder that she'd never used before tonight, and walked to the entrance. The night security guard looked up, startled. "Dr. Dufresne, I didn't know you were." "It's fine, Matt. I'm just picking up some files." She moved through the lobby to the elevators, her heart hammering. The building felt different at night. Quieter. More hers. The elevator climbed to the 40th floor, executive offices where she'd scrubbed floors 6 months ago, where Adrian had first learned her name. The doors opened. Adrian stood waiting. "Hello, Emily." Her breath caught. "What are you doing here?" "I sent the text." "Well, Malcolm sent it from a burner phone. Didn't think you'd come if you knew it was me." He looked exhausted, his tuxedo rumpled, his hair disheveled. "Before you tell me to leave again, just listen. Please." "Adrian." "I went home, like you asked. Got about 3 blocks before I realized I was being an idiot." He stepped closer. "You push me away because you're scared. I get it. But Emily, I'm scared too. Terrified, actually. My mother is a monster. My family legacy is built on theft. And I'm in love with a woman who's currently being targeted by multiple lawsuits and potential criminal charges." Despite everything, Emily's lips twitched. "Not exactly a fairy tale." "No, it's better. Because it's real." He closed the distance between them. Fairy tales don't have deepfake videos and hostile takeovers. They don't have complicated, messy, difficult, but they also don't have this. 2 people choosing each other, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. "I'm trying to protect you." "I don't want protection. I want partnership." His hands cupped her face, gentle but firm. "You've been alone for so long. You forgot what it's like to have someone in your corner. But I'm here, and I'm not leaving unless you look me in the eye and tell me you don't want me here." Emily looked into his eyes, those clear blue eyes that had seen her first as a person, not a position, that had defended her when it cost him, that had chosen her over his own mother. "I want you here," she whispered. "Then stop pushing me away." She kissed him then, pouring every fear and hope and desperate need into it. His arms wrapped around her, solid and sure, and for the first time in hours, Emily felt like she could breathe. When they pulled apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "Now let's destroy Julian Cross. I like the way you think. I brought reinforcements." He gestured toward the conference room. Emily followed him inside and stopped short. 20 people sat around the table. Some she recognized from Quantum, senior engineers, project leads. Others were strangers. Malcolm stood at the head of the table. "Dr. Dufresne, allow me to introduce the Julian Cross Survivors Network." A woman in her 40s stood. "Dr. Dufresne, I'm Rachel Bennington. I studied under Julian 15 years ago. He put his name on my research, and when I complained, I was expelled from the program." Another woman rose. "Keisha Washington. Julian harassed me for 2 years. When I reported it, I was told I was misinterpreting his mentorship style." One by one they stood. 11 women, each with a story of theft, harassment, gaslighting, and institutional betrayal. "Malcolm found us through academic networks," Rachel explained. "When we heard what Julian was doing to you, we decided enough was enough. We have documentation, emails, research notes, witness statements. Everything we were too scared to use 20 years ago." Emily's throat closed with emotion. "Why now?" "Because you went public," Keisha said simply. "You had everything to lose, and you still stood up. That gave us permission to do the same. And because Julian's lawsuit was sloppy," another woman added, Dr. Sarah Ross, according to her name tag. "He's claiming he created the Dufresne algorithm in 2003. But I have his research notes from 2002 showing he was working on completely different applications. He pivoted to data analytics only after you published your preliminary findings." Emily's mind raced. "He saw my work and claimed he'd been developing it all along." "Exactly. We can prove his timeline doesn't match." that his supporting witnesses are all people who've benefited from stolen research themselves, that there's a pattern of intellectual property theft spanning 2 decades. This is incredible, Sandra said, appearing in the doorway with Malcolm. With this testimony, we can not only defend against Julian's lawsuit, we can go on offense. File our own claims, expose the entire network. What about the deep fake video? Emily asked. Traced it. Sandra's smile was sharp. The metadata shows it was created using software licensed to a company called Crosstech Consulting. Want to guess who owns Crosstech? Julian's brother, Adrian said, pulling up records on his phone. Matt Cross. He's a digital forensics expert. Also, apparently, a criminal. Creating false evidence is a felony, Sandra continued. The moment Julian submits that video to the FBI, we can prove it's fabricated and have both brothers arrested for evidence tampering. Emily felt hope kindle in her chest for the first time since Julian's call. He's trapped himself. Not yet, Malcolm cautioned. He still has the cease and desist, the plagiarism accusations, the media narrative. Even if we prove his video is fake, the court of public opinion has already convicted you. Then we change the narrative, Adrian said. We don't wait for him to attack. We go public first. Hold a press conference, tell your story, introduce the other survivors. Make Julian defend himself instead of you defending against him. That's risky, Sandra warned. Once you go public with accusations, there's no taking them back. Good, Emily said, feeling steel enter her spine. Because I'm done hiding. Julian Cross has terrorized women for 20 years because we stayed silent, because institutions protected him, because the cost of speaking up was too high. She looked around the table at the faces of women who'd survived him. It ends now. Rachel smiled. What do you need from us? Your stories, your evidence, your willingness to stand with me in front of cameras and tell the truth. We're in, Keisha said, and the others nodded agreement. Emily felt something shift inside her, the isolation breaking, the walls she'd built crumbling. She wasn't alone. She'd never been alone. She'd just been too scared to ask for help. There's one more thing, Adrian said. My mother. The room tensed. She's the key to all of this, he continued. Whitmore Academy, the protection of predators, the institutional cover-ups. If we're going public, we need to include her role. Adrian, that's your mother, Emily said softly. And she tried to destroy the woman I love. She protected a man who's hurt dozens of women. She's corrupt, and she needs to be held accountable. His jaw tightened. I've already spoken to Margaret. She agrees. Our family legacy doesn't get to hide behind respectability anymore. Emily searched his face, saw the pain there, but also the resolve. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Sandra pulled up her calendar. We can schedule a press conference for Monday morning. That gives us 36 hours to prepare statements, gather evidence, coordinate testimony. And it puts us ahead of Julian's 24-hour deadline, Malcolm noted. He won't see it coming. Emily looked around the conference room, at the women who'd survived, at Sandra who'd fought beside her for years, at Malcolm who'd never forgotten what she taught him, at Adrian who'd chosen truth over comfort. Her team, her people. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, please share it with someone who needs to hear about courage and truth. Your support means the world to me. Let's do it, Emily said. Let's burn it all down. They worked through the night. Statements were drafted, evidence compiled, testimony coordinated. Rachel and Keisha contacted other survivors. The network grew to 23 women by dawn. At 5 a.m., Emily stood at the window of her office, the CEO office she'd never occupied, watching the sun rise over the city. Adrian appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You should sleep. Can't. Too much adrenaline. Nervous? Terrified. But also, she turned in his arms. Ready. For the first time in 20 years, I'm ready to stop hiding. You're going to be extraordinary, he said. We're going to be extraordinary, she corrected. Her phone buzzed. A message from Julian. Time's up. Sign over the company or face the consequences. Emily smiled and typed back. See you at the press conference. 10 a.m. Come prepared to answer questions about your criminal enterprises. She hit send and turned off her phone. Now what? Adrian asked. Now, Emily said, we get ready to tell the truth. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Quantum Innovations headquarters. By 8 a.m., media trucks lined the street like an occupying army. Emily stood in her office, the real one now, not the cleaning closet, and looked at her reflection. She'd chosen her outfit carefully. A tailored charcoal suit that said professional, a white blouse that said trustworthy, and the simple pearl earrings her grandmother had given her that said remember where you came from. She looked like a CEO. She looked like herself. Ready. Sandra appeared in the doorway. No, but let's do it anyway. They'd transformed the main auditorium into a press room. Cameras lined the back wall. Journalists filled every seat, and the podium stood like an altar waiting for confession or consecration. Behind the stage, the survivors gathered. 23 women ranging from their late 20s to early 50s. Different races, different backgrounds, one common thread. Julian Cross had tried to destroy them. He's here, Malcolm said, checking his phone. Julian just pulled up with his lawyers. Emily's stomach clenched. Good. I want him to hear every word. Adrian squeezed her hand. You got this. At 9:58 a.m., Emily walked onto the stage. The camera flashes were blinding, the noise deafening. She took her place at the podium, adjusted the microphone, and waited for silence. It came slowly, then all at once. Good morning. My name is Dr. Emily Dufresne. I am the founder and majority shareholder of Quantum Innovations. 3 days ago, I revealed my identity publicly for the first time in 10 years. Within hours, I was accused of plagiarism, corporate espionage, and fraud. She paused, letting the words settle. These accusations come from a man named Dr. Julian Cross, who was my faculty advisor 20 years ago at Whitmore Academy. Dr. Cross claims I stole his research, built my career on his work, and fabricated my credentials. The journalists leaned forward, sensing blood in the water. Today, I'm going to tell you the truth. Not the version that protects powerful institutions or respected researchers. The truth that's been buried for 2 decades because the women who tried to speak it were silenced. Emily nodded to Sandra, who cued the first presentation slide. In 2003, I was a 21-year-old undergraduate at Whitmore Academy on a full scholarship. I was working on a revolutionary data analytics algorithm as part of my senior thesis. This is the original code, time-stamped and verified by Cambridge University, where I later completed my doctorate. The screen showed pages of elegant code, mathematical proofs, research notes, all dated and authenticated. Dr. Julian Cross was my faculty advisor. In May of 2003, he informed me that as my supervisor, his name would appear as primary author on any publications derived from my research. When I objected, he told me that's how academic mentorship works. When I refused, he began a campaign to destroy my credibility. Another slide. Emails from Julian suggesting Emily was emotionally unstable, difficult to work with, possibly plagiarizing other sources. I filed a formal complaint with Whitmore Academy's ethics board in June 2003. The complaint detailed not only the intellectual property theft, but also sexual harassment that had been ongoing for months. The room erupted, journalists shouting questions, cameras flashing frantically. Emily raised her hand for silence. My complaint was received by Patricia Whitmore, then head of the Academy's Board of Trustees. She forwarded it to legal with this note. The slide changed to show Patricia's email, enlarged for all to see. Handle this quietly. Julian's research is too valuable to lose over a disgruntled scholarship student. Gasps rippled through the audience. My complaint was dismissed. I was told I had misunderstood Dr. Cross's mentorship. I left Whitmore Academy, completed my PhD at Cambridge using my own resources, and built quantum innovation from the ground up to prove that my algorithm, my work, could change the world. Emily gripped the podium. For 20 years, I thought I was the only one. I thought I'd been weak, somehow lacking, unable to navigate the system correctly. But I was wrong. She gestured to the side of the stage. I'd like to introduce you to 23 other women who studied under Dr. Julian Cross. Women who had their research stolen, their complaints dismissed, their careers derailed. Women who stayed silent because speaking up meant losing everything. One by one, the survivors walked onto the stage. Rachel, Keisha, Sarah, all of them, standing together. The room exploded again. This was the story now. Not one disgruntled former student, but a pattern spanning 2 decades. Rachel stepped to the microphone. My name is Dr. Rachel Bennington. In 2008, Julian Cross put his name on my cancer research and had me expelled when I complained. That research later won him the Patterson Prize for Medical Innovation. My work, his award. Keisha was next. Keisha Washington. Julian sexually harassed me for 2 years. When I reported it, I was told I was misinterpreting his interest in my academic development. I left academia entirely. One by one, they testified. Quick, powerful statements that painted an undeniable pattern. When the last woman finished, Emily returned to the microphone. Yesterday, Dr. Cross threatened to have me arrested for corporate espionage. He provided this video as evidence. The deepfake footage played on screen. Emily in her cleaning uniform, downloading files from Adrian's computer. This video is fabricated, created using software licensed to Cross-Tech Consulting, a company owned by Julian's brother, Matt Cross. We have the metadata, the software signatures, and the digital forensics to prove it. Creating false evidence is a federal crime. Sandra stepped forward with a folder. We're filing criminal charges against both Julian and Matt Cross for evidence tampering, attempted extortion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We're also filing civil suits on behalf of all 23 survivors for intellectual property theft, sexual harassment, and defamation. The room was chaos now. Journalists shouting questions, cameras everywhere, the story growing by the second. Then a voice cut through the noise like a blade. This is slander. Julian Cross stood at the back of the auditorium, his face purple with rage. This woman is a liar and a thief. I made her career possible, and this is how she repays me. Emily met his eyes across the room, and she felt no fear. Only cold, certain justice. Dr. Cross, would you like to explain why your research notes from 2002 show you were working on quantum computing applications, not data analytics? The field you only pivoted to after I published my preliminary findings? Julian's face went white. Or perhaps you'd like to explain how you created an algorithm that uses mathematical proofs that didn't exist until I published them in 2004. I supervised your work. That makes it collaborative. Collaboration requires consent. What you did was theft. Emily's voice was steel. And it ends today. 2 police officers appeared at the auditorium doors. Sandra nodded to them. Dr. Julian Cross, you're under arrest for evidence tampering and attempted extortion, one officer said, approaching with handcuffs. Julian backed away. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? Yes, Emily said quietly. You're a predator who's hidden behind respectability for 20 years. But you're not hiding anymore. The officers handcuffed him while cameras captured every moment. Julian was still shouting about lawsuits and powerful friends as they led him away. Emily waited until the doors closed behind him before turning back to the microphone. There's one more piece to this story. Patricia Whitmore Hadley, current chair of Whitmore Trust and board member of multiple corporations, has spent 20 years protecting researchers like Julian Cross, burying complaints, silencing victims, choosing institutional reputation over human decency. She pulled up another slide, a compilation of emails, memos, and documents showing Patricia's pattern of suppression. As of this morning, I'm calling for her resignation from all board positions and a full independent investigation into Whitmore Academy's handling of sexual harassment and intellectual property theft. The doors at the back opened again. Patricia Hadley walked in, flanked by her own lawyers. She looked immaculate as always. Perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect mask of disdain. Dr. Dufresne, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room, you're making very serious accusations without understanding the context. I understand perfectly. Emily's voice was calm, implacable. You protected Julian Cross because his stolen research made Whitmore Academy look prestigious. You silenced women because their complaints were inconvenient. You build a system that rewards predators and punishes victims. That's a gross oversimplification. Then explain this. Adrian stepped onto the stage, his face tight with controlled emotion. Explain why you called Emily a disgruntled scholarship student when she reported sexual harassment. Explain why you filed a fraudulent cease and desist the moment her identity became public. Explain why you value reputation over basic human decency. Patricia's mask cracked. Adrian, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand that I was raised by a woman who protects predators. I understand that my family's legacy is built on stolen work and silenced victims. I understand that standing with you means betraying everything I believe in. His voice broke. So I'm standing with Emily. And I'm calling for your resignation too. The room went absolutely silent. A mother and son, facing each other across an auditorium full of witnesses. Legacy versus integrity. Blood versus conscience. Patricia looked at Adrian like she'd never seen him before. You'd choose her over your own family? I'm choosing what's right, Adrian said. Something you taught me to value, right up until it became inconvenient for you. Patricia turned to Emily, and for just a moment, something like fear flickered in her eyes. You've made a powerful enemy, Dr. Dufresne. No, Emily said. I've made a corrupt system face consequences. There's a difference. Patricia left without another word, but the damage was done. Every camera had captured the exchange. Every journalist had the story. By noon, it would be international news. Emily turned back to the press corps. I'm taking questions now. The next hour was a blur. Question after question about the algorithm, the survivors, Whitmore Academy, Patricia's role. Emily answered with calm precision, backed by evidence, supported by the women standing beside her. Sandra fielded legal questions. Malcolm provided context about Julian's academic career. Adrian spoke about corporate culture and accountability. And through it all, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in 20 years. Peace. The truth was out. All of it. No more hiding. No more silence. No more isolation. When the press conference finally ended, Emily sagged against the podium. You did it, Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. We did it. The survivors surrounded Emily in a group embrace. 24 women who'd survived the same predator, finding strength in solidarity. What happens now? Keisha asked. Now we rebuild, Emily said. Whitmore Academy gets investigated. Julian goes to trial. And you all get the recognition you deserve for your research. And you? Sarah asked. Emily looked at Adrian, who was watching her with pride and love written all over his face. I stopped hiding, she said. By evening, the response was overwhelming. Whitmore Academy's board had called an emergency meeting. 3 board members resigned immediately. Patricia released a statement announcing she was stepping back from all positions pending an investigation. Julian was denied bail, held on charges of evidence tampering and attempted extortion. Federal investigators were already looking into the broader pattern of intellectual property theft. Cambridge University issued a statement confirming Emily's PhD was earned through original research and apologizing for flagging her credentials without investigation. And Quantum Innovation's stock price, which had tanked that morning, soared to record highs as investors realized they were backing a company with unquestionable leadership and integrity. Emily stood in her office, watching the sun set over the city, when Adrian appeared with champagne. Celebrating? She asked. Surviving, he corrected, pouring 2 glasses. Margaret called. She says the press conference was the most badass thing she's ever seen and wants to name her first daughter after you. Emily laughed, the sound surprising her with its lightness. Tell her I'm honored, but she should probably run that by Malcolm first. They touched glasses, the crystal chiming softly. You know your mother is never going to forgive you, Emily said quietly. I know. Margaret and I talked about it. We're prepared for her to cut us off, contest the trust, make things difficult. He set down his glass and took her hands. But Emily, I don't care. Whatever happens with my family, whatever legacy I lose, it's worth it. You're worth it. Adrian, let me finish. These past few days, watching you face down Julian and my mother and the entire corrupt system they built, you've been extraordinary. brave and brilliant and absolutely terrifying in the best way. He smiled. I fell in love with you when I thought you were a cleaner with remarkable insights. But this, watching you fight for justice, stand with survivors, refuse to back down, I've never been more certain that you're exactly who I want beside me for the rest of my life. Emily's breath caught. That sounds like it's not a proposal. Not yet. We've got trials to face, companies to run, families to navigate. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. But it's a promise. That I'm here. That I choose you. That whatever comes next, we face it together. Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks. I choose you too. Even when I was pushing you away, even when I was terrified, I choose you. He kissed her then, tender and fierce and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Emily's phone was buzzing with notifications. Messages from survivors, from colleagues, from reporters requesting follow-up interviews. But one message stood out. From Margaret. You saved more than your company today. You saved all of us. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth. We're family now, whether Mother likes it or not. Emily showed it to Adrian, who smiled through his own tears. Told you, he said. Worth it. Emily looked around her office. The space she'd built, the company she'd created, the truth she'd finally claimed. For 20 years, she'd hidden who she was to stay safe. Today, she'd revealed everything and discovered she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. Not because she'd fought alone, but because she'd finally let people stand with her. If this story touched your heart, drop a comment and let me know. Your words fuel these stories and remind me why I do this. The battles weren't over. Julian's trial would take months. Patricia would fight the investigations. Whitmore Academy would resist reform. But Emily had something they didn't. The truth. Her team. And a whole community of survivors who were done being silent. The war was just beginning. But for the first time in 20 years, Emily Dufresne was fighting in the light. And she was going to win. 6 months later, Emily stood in the main auditorium of Quantum Innovations. The same room where she'd held the press conference that changed everything, and smiled at the crowd gathered before her. The space looked different now. Brighter. More open. The walls featured photographs of the company's founding team, including one of Emily herself at 23, hunched over a laptop in a tiny Cambridge apartment, creating the algorithm that would change everything. No more hiding. No more shadows. Thank you all for being here, Emily said into the microphone, her voice steady and clear. 6 months ago, I stood on this stage and told the truth about Julian Cross, Whitmore Academy, and the system that protects predators at the expense of victims. Today, I'm here to share what happened next. The audience, employees, survivors, journalists, and supporters leaned forward. Dr. Julian Cross was convicted on all charges: evidence tampering, attempted extortion, conspiracy to commit fraud, and sexual harassment. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to all 23 survivors. His academic credentials have been revoked, and every publication bearing his name is being reviewed for intellectual property theft. Applause erupted. Emily waited for it to subside. Matt Cross, who created the deepfake video, received 5 years for evidence tampering and lost his digital forensics license. Whitmore Academy underwent a complete investigation. 7 faculty members were terminated. 12 others resigned. The board was dissolved and reconstituted with independent oversight. She paused, seeing Patricia in her mind's eye, diminished, disgraced, but still defiant to the end. Patricia Whitmore Hadley resigned from all board positions. She's facing multiple civil suits from survivors whose complaints she buried. The Whitmore Trust has been restructured to include survivor advocates and independent ethics reviewers. It will never again protect predators over people. More applause, but Emily raised her hand. But the most important change isn't about punishment. It's about restoration. Every survivor who came forward has been offered a formal apology, financial compensation, and the opportunity to reclaim their research. Dr. Rachel Bennington's cancer treatment protocol, stolen by Julian, is now credited to her and is saving lives worldwide. Keisha Washington returned to academia and just received tenure. Dr. Sarah Ross published the research that was taken from her and won the very prize Julian stole. Emily felt tears prick her eyes as she looked at the survivors seated in the front row, women who'd found their voices, reclaimed their work, rebuilt their lives. As for quantum innovations, we've established the Survivors Innovation Fund, $100 million dedicated to supporting women in STEM whose research has been stolen or whose careers have been derailed by harassment. We're also implementing new corporate policies that prioritize transparency, employee welfare, and ethical leadership. She gestured to Adrian, who stood at the side of the stage in his new role as president and COO. Under Adrian Hadley's leadership, Quantum has achieved record growth while maintaining the highest employee satisfaction rating in the industry. We've proven that you don't have to sacrifice ethics for success, that treating people well and doing what's right isn't just moral, it's good business. Adrian smiled, pride evident in his eyes. But beyond the legal victories and corporate achievements, something more profound happened. 23 women who thought they were alone discovered they were part of a community. Dozens more came forward with their own stories. We started a movement that's spreading beyond Whitmore, beyond tech, beyond any single industry. Emily pulled up her final slide, a montage of news headlines from the past 6 months. Major universities overhaul harassment policies following Whitmore scandal. Tech companies implement new protections for employee whistleblowers. Survivors of academic theft find justice in wave of new lawsuits. The Dufresne effect. How one woman's courage sparked institutional change. We didn't just win our case, Emily said. We changed the conversation. We made it harder for predators to hide and easier for survivors to speak up. We proved that truth and justice aren't just ideals, they're achievable. She closed her laptop and stepped away from the podium, speaking from the heart now. 6 months ago, I was terrified. I thought revealing my identity meant losing everything. In some ways, I did lose things. Privacy, anonymity, the comfortable distance I'd kept from the world for a decade. She looked at Adrian again, at the love and support written all over his face. But I gained so much more. Community, connection, the freedom to be fully myself without apology or disguise. And I learned that real strength isn't about controlling everything or protecting yourself from every possible hurt. It's about choosing truth even when it's terrifying. It's about letting people in even when it's risky. Emily smiled at the crowd. So thank you to every survivor who stood with me, to every employee who believed in Quantum's mission, to everyone who chose truth over comfort. You changed my life. You changed the world. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. That evening, Emily and Adrian stood on the rooftop terrace of Quantum's headquarters, watching the city lights sparkle like stars. Hell of a 6 months, Adrian said, pulling her close. That's one way to put it. Emily leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Julian in prison. My mother disgraced. Your company thriving. Multiple systemic reforms. A Time magazine cover with your face on it. He kissed the top of her head. You're kind of a big deal now, Dr. Dufresne. We're kind of a big deal, she corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Yes, you could have. But I'm really glad you didn't have to. Emily turned to face him, cupping his jaw in her hand. Your mother called me yesterday. Adrian tensed. What did she want? To apologize, actually, not for what she did. She's still convinced she was protecting the institution. But for underestimating me. She said, and I quote, I failed to recognize your caliber, Dr. Dufresne. That was poor judgment on my part. That's the closest thing to genuine remorse you'll ever get from her. I know. Emily smiled sadly. I told her that if she really wanted to make amends, she should fund scholarships for underprivileged women in STEM. Anonymously. No credit, no control, just genuine support. What did she say? She said she'd consider it, which for Patricia is basically a yes. Emily shook her head. I don't forgive her for what she did, but I'm done letting her live rent-free in my head. That's growth. That's therapy, Emily laughed. Turns out, dismantling corrupt systems and confronting childhood trauma are both easier with professional help. Adrian grinned. Speaking of growth, I got a call from Margaret today. She and Malcolm will name their daughter Emily Rachel, after you and Rachel Bennington. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? They said you showed them what it means to fight for what's right, even when it costs you everything. They want their daughter to have that kind of courage. I'm going to cry, Emily warned. Please do. You're beautiful when you cry. She swatted his arm, laughing through tears. Smooth talker. I learned from the best. He pulled her close again, swaying slightly even though there was no music. Emily, these past 6 months watching you step into your power, claim your truth, build community, I've fallen more in love with you every single day. Adrian, I told you 6 months ago that I wasn't proposing yet, that we had trials to face and families to navigate. He pulled back slightly, reaching into his pocket. Well, we've faced them. Julian's in prison. My mother's out of our lives. Your company is thriving, and I'm done waiting. He dropped to one knee. Emily's breath stopped. Emily Dufresne, you're the bravest, most brilliant, most extraordinary person I've ever known. You make me want to be better, do better, fight harder for what matters. I love who you are when you're with me, and I love who I am when I'm with you. He opened a small velvet box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond set in platinum. Will you marry me? Emily looked at the ring, at Adrian's hopeful face, at the city spread out below them. The empire she'd built, the truth she'd claimed, the life she'd finally stepped into fully. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, joy flooding through her. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like tears and champagne and the future. When they pulled apart, Emily laughed breathlessly. We're really doing this? Building a life together. We're really doing this. Although, Adrian's expression turned sheepish. I should probably warn you that Margaret's already planning the wedding. She's calling it redemption for the disaster that was her reception. I love your sister. She loves you too. She says you're the best thing that ever happened to our family. Emily thought about that. About being welcomed into a family despite the chaos. About finding love in the midst of battle. About discovering that vulnerability wasn't weakness but courage. Before we wrap up this incredible journey, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below telling me what this story meant to you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I share stories like this every week, and your support makes it all possible. What are you thinking? Adrian asked. I'm thinking about the girl I was 20 years ago, working in a lab at Whitmore, believing Julian when he said collaboration meant putting his name first. Thinking I was alone, that speaking up would destroy me. Emily looked at her ring, sparkling in the city lights. If I could go back and tell her what happens, that she survives, that she thrives, that she builds an empire and finds love and changes the system that tried to break her, I don't think she'd believe me. Would you change anything? Emily considered. No, because every hard thing, every moment of hiding, every year of building in silence, it all led here. To this company, this community, this life. To you. No regrets. Not a single one. They stood together on the rooftop as the city hummed below, a city full of people fighting their own battles, carrying their own truths, searching for their own courage. And Emily thought about the message she'd send them if she could, the lesson learned through fire and forged injustice. You're not alone. Your truth matters. Your voice has power. And the systems that try to silence you, they're afraid because they know you're stronger than they ever imagined. Stand up. Speak out. Let yourself be seen. The world is waiting for your light. 1 year later, Emily stood in front of a mirror in a simple white gown, her natural hair styled in elegant twists adorned with small white flowers. You ready? Rachel asked, adjusting Emily's veil. Emily looked at the women surrounding her. Rachel, Keisha, Sarah, and the other survivors who become her closest friends. Women who understood what it meant to fight, to survive, to reclaim. I'm ready, she said. The wedding was small, intimate, just family and close friends in the garden behind Quantum's headquarters. The same building where she'd scrubbed floors, where she'd revealed her truth, where she'd changed everything. Margaret stood as her maid of honor, baby Emily Rachel sleeping peacefully in her arms. Malcolm walked her down the aisle, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "Your courage changed my life, boss. Thank you for teaching me what integrity really means." And Adrian waited at the altar, looking at her like she was his entire world. The ceremony was beautiful. The vows, honest and tearful and perfect. When they kissed as husband and wife, the small crowd erupted in applause. But the moment Emily would remember forever came later, during the reception, when Rachel stood to give a toast. To Emily Dufresne, Rachel said, raising her glass, "Who taught us that the truth is worth fighting for? That justice is possible. That survivors don't just survive, we thrive. Thank you for being brave first, so the rest of us could be brave too." To Emily, the crowd echoed. Emily looked around at the faces she loved. Adrian, her husband now, her partner in everything. Margaret and Malcolm, the survivors who'd become her family. The quantum employees who believed in her mission. And she felt something she hadn't felt in 20 years. Complete. Not because everything was perfect. Julian was still in prison, but appeals would continue. Patricia was still fighting the lawsuits. The systemic problems in academia and corporate America were far from solved. But Emily had her truth, her community, her purpose. She had love, and she had learned the most important lesson of all, that hiding keeps you safe, but living fully, with all your truth, all your power, all your authentic self, that's what sets you free. Adrian pulled her onto the dance floor, and as they swayed to music played by the same string quartet from Margaret's wedding, he whispered in her ear, "Happy." Emily looked at her husband, at the life they were building together, at the future stretching out before them, full of possibility. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," she said, and she meant every word. Thank you so much for going on this journey with Emily and Adrian. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or inspired you, please leave a comment below. I love hearing how these stories impact you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story. Until next time, remember, your truth matters, your voice has power, and you are stronger than you know. Keep shining.